Hello again. Our topic today is anger. Anger is a primary emotion, which means everybody experiences anger. It applies not only to humans. We are able to experience anger because evolution wanted us to do so. It's as simple as that. We need all our primary emotions, including anger and fear. They are biologically programmed in our bodies. We wouldn't be able to experience them if we didn't need them. Our ancestors, prone to anger and fear, wouldn't have survived if those emotions made them less adaptive. They wouldn't have a chance to pass their genetic material to future generations. This is how evolution works. But obviously, the opposite happened. And here we are with our genetic inheritance of anger and fear. In spite of technological development, our species will not last very long if we are deprived of those primary emotions. Yet, despite its necessity for our survival, anger is increasingly used to gaslight people in social situations, especially men. Raise your voice and you have anger problem, as if anger was a problem in itself. So let's look closer at anger and its three types: the good, the bad, and the ugly. Watch our video.
Anger, a simple word, yet it evokes a storm of emotions and reactions. Anger is a force of nature, much like the stormy weather that mirrors our inner turmoil. We've all felt its fiery grip, the way it can twist our insides and leave us trembling with its power. It can make our hearts race, our minds cloud, and our bodies tense. Anger is an emotion often demonized, shrouded in negativity, and quickly labeled as bad. Society teaches us to suppress it, to hide it away, as if it's something to be ashamed of. But what if we told you that anger, in its purest form, isn't inherently bad? What if, instead of suppressing it, we learned to understand it? Anger, like any primal emotion, serves a purpose. It is a natural response to perceived threats or injustices. It's a signal, a warning flare shot up from the depths of our being, alerting us to a situation that demands attention. It tells us that something is wrong, that something needs our action. Anger can be a powerful force for good, driving us to protect ourselves and our loved ones. It helps us set boundaries and stand up for what we believe in. It can fuel our determination and give us the courage to do what's necessary. However, anger can also be destructive, a raging inferno that consumes everything in its path, leaving behind a trail of regret and broken relationships. When left unchecked, it can lead to actions we later regret. The key to understanding anger lies in recognizing its different forms. Not all anger is the same, and not all expressions of anger are harmful. Just as a fire can be used to cook a meal or raise a forest, anger can be a constructive force or a destructive one. It can be a tool for growth or a weapon of destruction. It all depends on how we choose to understand and manage it. By acknowledging our anger and exploring its roots, we can learn to channel it in healthy ways. In this exploration of anger, we'll discuss its three primary forms: the good, the bad, and the ugly. Each form has its own characteristics and impacts on our lives. By understanding these different faces of anger, we can learn to harness its power for positive change while mitigating its potential for destruction. Imagine witnessing an act of injustice: a child being bullied, someone being abused, a family facing discrimination, or animals being mistreated. These moments can stir something deep within us. What do you feel? If your heart races, your fists clench, and a surge of energy courses through you, you're experiencing good anger. This is not just any anger, but a profound emotional response that signals something is fundamentally wrong. This type of anger is a righteous indignation, a call to action that arises when our values are violated or our boundaries are crossed. Good anger is protective. It is a natural response that compels us to stand up for what is right. It's the surge of adrenaline that empowers us to defend ourselves and our loved ones from physical or emotional harm. This protective instinct is crucial for our survival and well-being. It's the voice that rises within us, urging us to speak truth to power and challenge injustice. This voice is not just about anger, it's about courage and conviction. This type of anger is assertive, not offensive. It's about deterrence, not conquering. It seeks to defend, not inflict harm. Good anger aims to protect rather than destroy. Furthermore, good anger can be a powerful force for unity. It brings people together, united by a common cause. When channeled effectively, it maintains safety and fairness within social groups. It discourages people from violating social norms. In the end, good anger is not just about the emotion itself, but about what it drives us to do. It is a force that, when harnessed, can lead to protection, unity, and empowerment.
That was the good anger. But not all anger is good.
While good anger can be a catalyst for positive change, it's a double-edged sword. It can motivate us to stand up for ourselves and to fight for justice. However, it can turn into something much darker and more destructive. If left unchecked, it can easily spiral into its destructive counterpart: bad anger. This type of anger doesn't just flare up and then dissipate. It lingers, festers, and grows, feeding off our unresolved issues and past traumas. Bad anger is characterized by its intensity, duration, and first of all, its tendency to target the wrong source. It often arises from exaggerated or imagined threats rather than real ones. It's not just a momentary outburst. It's a prolonged state of agitation that can cloud our judgment and distort our perceptions. It's the simmering resentment that lingers long after the initial trigger, poisoning our thoughts and relationships. This kind of anger can make us see enemies where there are none, and can turn minor disagreements into major conflicts. Bad anger is often rooted in unresolved pain, trauma, or unmet needs. These deep-seated issues can create a well of anger that we may not even be fully aware of, but which influences our behavior and interactions with others. Instead of addressing these underlying issues, we lash out, projecting our pain onto others. This can create a vicious cycle, where our actions provoke negative reactions from others, which in turn fuels our anger even more. This type of anger is like a runaway train careening out of control, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. It can lead to impulsive actions that we later regret, and can cause lasting damage to our relationships and our own mental health. One of the most insidious aspects of bad anger is its tendency to target the wrong source. We may find ourselves lashing out at people who have nothing to do with the root cause of our anger, simply because they are convenient targets. We may unleash our fury on loved ones who are simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, or we may direct our anger inwards, engaging in self-destructive behaviors like substance abuse or self-harm. This misplaced anger can create a ripple effect, causing pain and suffering not just for ourselves, but for those around us as well.
Bad anger is sometimes called neurotic anger. While good anger is anchored in empowerment, bad anger is usually perceived as a sign of weakness. When our red lines are crossed, good anger leads to punishment, while bad anger leads to retaliation. There is a difference between the two responses. While punishing someone, we control our reactions by choosing the time, place, and form of punishment in a way that minimizes our costs. Punishment has always a clear goal. When we simply retaliate, our actions are, in fact, controlled by those who provoked us. Retaliation may result in inflicting bigger damage on ourselves than on our adversary. Now, let's take a look at the ugliest form of anger, the narcissistic and sociopathic.
Ugly anger represents the darkest side of this complex emotion. This type of anger is the most dangerous, rooted in pathological needs and attitudes that we often see in narcissism and sociopathy. It's characterized by its cruelty, intent to harm, and a complete disregard for the well-being of others. Unlike good anger, which is rooted in a sense of justice, ugly anger is fueled by a sense of entitlement and a desire for power, control, and dominance. It seeks to punish, humiliate, and subjugate others. This type of anger can manifest in verbal abuse, emotional manipulation, physical violence, or even more insidious forms of cruelty. People who struggle with ugly anger often lack insight into their behavior. They may blame others for their outbursts, downplay the impact of their actions, or refuse to take responsibility for their behavior. When confronted, they may play victims. This lack of accountability makes ugly anger particularly dangerous and difficult to address. Understanding anger is a vital skill. It's not just about recognizing it in ourselves, but also in others. This awareness can really help in preventing conflicts, protecting yourself, and fostering better relationships. Anger, at its core, is a survival mechanism. It alerts us to potential threats and prepares our bodies to respond. However, this response may be misplaced and can lead to serious consequences. Mastering anger is about understanding its biological role and learning to channel it constructively. By doing so, we not only improve our well-being but also foster healthier relationships and a more harmonious society.
That's all for today. If you have any questions or comments, post them in the commentary field. And stay attuned to our coming videos.